Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm Sam Lance, joined by Jackson Bezdek today once again, and both of Bez's teams lost some big-time games over the weekend, and we'll go over the one on the basketball court right up next. All right, Bez, before we begin, I just wanted to check in on you and your mental health because the Jayhawks, they lost. The Chiefs, they lost in the Super Bowl. It must have been a rough weekend for you. So, Bez, how are you feeling? Are you doing okay?
I'm all right. My sixth grade team won the championship this weekend. So, out of the three teams, I might have cared about that one the most. So, I was pretty fired up about that. But, I'm not a diehard Chiefs fan. I'm definitely I live in Kansas, so I cheer for the Chiefs fan. So, last night, it is what it is. A three-peat would have been cool to watch, but it obviously did not happen. And I'm still not over Saturday. I mean, 3 years in a row in Manhattan, coming out of there with a loss is so ridiculous and unacceptable on a multitude of levels. And I'm ready to hop into that with you right now, Sam. So I'm ready to blow off some steam here on the hum.
Yeah, let's get into it. Kansas loses on the road to Kansas State 81-73. And you mentioned it, it's now three losses in a row in Manhattan. That's the first time that's happened in about 40 years. And honestly, this final score, Bez, isn't really indicative of just how dominant Kansas State was in this game. It really seemed like, especially in the second half, that Kansas never had a chance in this game. And then after a big win against Iowa State, you're thinking maybe Kansas is turning a corner. But no, they couldn't back it up with another energized performance. The defense just looked absolutely lost at times, especially Hunter Dickinson a lot in those ball screen situations. And this is the result. You lose by 8 points against Kansas State. Bez, I'll kick it to you as always for your first thoughts.
So I didn't get to watch until right around the under 8 minute mark. And like I checked my phone for the score before I started watching. I'm like, this is kind of what I expected. K-State's going to come out hot and make shots. They're going to be jazzed up. How's KU going to respond, weather the storm? And then it just never got better. It just never got better. To give up that many easy points to a team that still doesn't run an offense. I mean, they don't run an offense. I think they ran three set plays. They run a high ball screen, or they let one of their guards dance, or they give Coleman the ball at the top of the key and tell him to figure something out. That is their offense. And it was it looked like one of the best offensive teams in the country on Saturday. I mean, coming off of holding Iowa State to 50, and then you go out and give up 80 to K-State. That makes no sense. No metric, no website, no analysis it can tell you why that happened. It just doesn't make sense. And it's like, to me, just speaks on the bigger picture of what's going wrong. And it's that nobody cares on the team. Nobody seems like there was no halftime, like, guys, this cannot be how it goes. Like I probably watched that Ochai game winner back in 22 like four times. They were down so much at half and they just came back with CB and J Will, Ochai leading the charge. DeJuan on the floor for the whole half. Like I don't know who needs to be that guy, but somebody has to do it. And continuously, game after game after game, nobody steps up. Nobody steps up. It's just another frustrating loss in a season of frustrating losses.
Yeah, the past 2 years, kind of overall, have been frustrating for Kansas fans. This is the first talking point that I want to bring up, and it's these two quotes from Bill Self post game. And I think this is probably the biggest conversation piece that ended up coming out of this game. Self said, "It's been very difficult for us, for whatever reason, to string games of superb energy back to back or even consistently at all. I mean, you guys have seen this. There are times against the elite teams we can lock anybody down, and there are times when we can't guard our shadow. I thought K-State played unreal. They shot it great. They were faster. They played with more energy." I went on to say, "I didn't think we played with energy defensively, and we're not quick enough to keep up with speed when you aren't turned up. Defensively, we weren't turned up." Then he was asked, why is it so hard for this team to find consistency? And he said, I would say, honestly, maybe having a mindset that it's not a game day attitude, it's an everyday attitude because our practice is inconsistent as well when it comes to that. Also, we're not talented enough that we can just show up and win off talent. So we got to be turned up and have to play to a certain way. And when we do that, we can play with anybody and beat anybody. But when we don't, it drops quite a bit. I mean, I think that kind of just says it all right there. The energy levels are just not there for Kansas on a consistent game to game basis. And whenever that's the case, Kansas is losing games.
The thing with energy is this from a coaching standpoint. If your team is not giving you energy anymore and you've tried everything to get them fired up, to get them ready to go, to stress how important each Big 12 game is, if by now they haven't figured that out, then it's a lost season. You will never get them to buy in by now. That's honestly what I think. If that's what the case is in this locker room, there's not enough time and it's just really kind of impossible to just suddenly mid-February be like, okay, now we're going to buy in. That's not how it works. And then on the other side, Bill, this might be on you, bud. How come your teams consistently come out flat? At some point, that's coaching. At some point, you're not getting them ready to go. So either completely throw them under the bus and say, this team just doesn't have it. They don't have it. They don't show up. They're completely inconsistent. Like you said about practice, clearly they're not showing up to practice ready to go every day. So maybe that's not on Bill. But dude, if they're actually wanting to win and if they're bought into each other and they're still not showing up every game, that's on you at that point. You have to get them ready to go. And it's so frustrating, Sam, because I actually do think they can win off of talent sometimes. And it's funny that he mentioned that because the guys that don't have talent are the ones he's playing 35 minutes a game. And he's right. You can't win off talent when Dewan and KJ are shooting half your shots because they're not, sorry, they're not talented basketball players. They're just not. And when Ryland's got on the team, Zeke, AJ, you got all these talented guys. I mean, we could talk in circles about that like we have all year. Who needs to play? Who needs the ball? All of that crap. But at the end of the day, like Zeke looks completely disinterested when he's not in Allen Fieldhouse. He looks completely disinterested. He needs all these little KU sorority girls to be watching in order to him to actually show up. And it's really frustrating as a fellow kid from Kansas that he won't do that. Dewan, KJ, they're bringing it every single game. They really are. I truly believe that. They're bringing it every single game. But, you know, they're not the best players on the team. And when your best players on the team aren't bringing it, this is what you get, Sam.
I don't think it's on Self for the energy, game to game. I don't think it's on Self,
I
but
agree with you.
Self did put together this roster. And
Right.
that is what I think is on Self because it seems like, yeah, this is what Chris Tehan said after the game. Since this tweet has been deleted, but I was able to get a screenshot today. This is what Chris Tehan said after the game. Don't get me wrong. I'm furious about today. Turned it off with 10 minutes left, but if you blame this on Coach Self, you don't know a single thing. There are only two dudes on the team that care, and you all hate on them every day. Coach can't do anything because these dudes don't care.
It's
I
kind of what
think
I
there's
just
a
said.
point there. I mean, I
Yeah.
think he does actually have a really good point there, but I don't think it's on Coach Self again that the energy is off game to game. But Coach Self brought in all of these guys, and it's on him to make them fit together. And I think T-Han's right. It really doesn't seem like anybody cares but two people. And those two people I believe that he's talking about are DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams. Like DeJuan and KJ, they bring it. Yeah, I mean, KJ, if you just watch him, he's super hyped after literally anything he does.
Anything. Anything.
Plays with insane passion. The other guys right now, like I don't see it. I don't think that
I'm with you, man.
Kansas has like does Kansas even have a true leader on this team? Like I feel like DeJuan Harris is the guy that, he's the last person to speak in the huddle, they're all before they go into the locker room, but is DeJuan Harris really the outspoken leader that you want? I thought maybe Shaquille Moore could emerge into that, but I don't think that's really happened. I'm at a loss of words at this point on why Kansas is so inconsistent because it is crazy how inconsistent this team is.
Dude, I think Tihan nailed it. I agree with you completely. And even like you are right. Self brought in these guys, so that part's on him. But it's so like it's actually impossible to judge a guy that you're recruiting. You can't know if he's going to buy in or not. You can't. You can talk to his former coaches, you can talk to his parents, you can see what kind of kid he is, you can do all of that stuff, but you have no idea if he's going to buy in or not. And Tihan, I think Tihan nailed it, man. I think he did. Like it's you have to show up with energy. And if I'm a Bill Self guy, I know he's trying everything. I know he is. And at some point, your team just doesn't have it. They just don't. And there's nothing that's going to change it. There's nothing you can do as a coach. Like you can't scream at him enough. You can't show him a bunch of hype videos. Like you can't bring in motivational speakers. Like all of that, I'm sure Self has looked into, but it just didn't. It's just not working. And like I think Dewan's a leader in a sense of the word, but he's not an alpha. So you're not going to get the guys that, and he's probably like the sixth or seventh most talented guy on the team, So that it's just hard for him to be the true outspoken alpha dog leader. It's not his personality. And even though he's trying at the end of the day, he's still a point guard who just averages 6 points, 6 assists. That's just who he is. And it's tough for guys coming in from other schools to be like, I'm following you to the promised land when you're going to score 3 buckets a game. And that's not on Dewan. It's not his fault at all. It's on the rest of the team. It's frustrating. I said that 10 times now.
What's really, amazes me about how consistently inconsistent Kansas is. They're one of the oldest teams in the country, Bez. One of the oldest teams in the country. I mean, you look down this roster and it's senior, 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 and then Flory. Like, so I don't understand how you can be in your fourth, fifth year of college basketball and not know at this point what it takes from an energy standpoint to win basketball games. And it's just been shown way too many times this year. Like, how many times has energy been the talking point after a game? That
Almost
just
every
can't
loss, it
happen.
seems
It
like.
can't happen.
Can't happen. It seems like every loss, that's what Bill's asked about in the presser. Like, how come so and so played with more energy than you guys? And he's like, I don't know. I hate these kids in the locker room. They're driving me up a wall. It's brutal, man. It's brutal. And then just the K-State part on top of it. It's got to matter. It has to matter. It does. Being Kansas basketball, the K-State game, yeah, it's just another regular season game. I get that. Then you go lose two in a row in Manhattan. They're under 500 this year. They're playing pretty well. This would actually be a decent win.
Hottest team in
The
college
confidence
basketball.
going.
Hottest team in college
They
basketball.
really are. They really are. So this is a great chance to go in and regain your swagger. Lost there 2 years in a row. Dude, I mean, I can't believe Kansas was favored in this game, honestly, Sam. I can't believe it. Like, I knew they would be, but at the end of the day, like, K-State plus money there, that was such a free bet. And I could never take it and sell my soul that way. But it's got to matter. Two in a row, you can't be part of the team that loses three in a row in Manhattan. Not like, dude, like, my dad was a kid when that happened last. He doesn't even remember it to tell me what it was like. And here I am sitting through it in my 20s. Ugh. Gosh. Anyway, yeah.
I think another thing to make a quick point on, I watched the Locked On Jayhawks podcast with Derek Johnson after this game, and just a concerning stat. Basically, since January 18th, which is when Kansas played Kansas State last, Kansas just hasn't turned people over at all. 55 turnovers in 7 games since that Kansas State game. That's not good. And I really do think that specific statistic is directly correlated with energy and effort. Like, if you are playing energized, if you're playing with a ton of effort, you're getting up into people on the defensive end, teams are going to turn the ball over more. Teams just aren't doing it right now. It's concerning. It is concerning. And I'll ask you, Bez, do you think Kansas turns this around? Because right now it's looking a little bleak.
I don't see it. And I know what the schedule looks like coming up. It could be very easy that they're 5-0 after this stretch. Everything's turning the right way. Everything's looking up. Honestly, if they're 5-0 after this next five, I'm not gonna I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be mentally here where I am right now until they play an actual team with a pulse again because I'm just not going to buy it. I'm not going to buy the crap competition they have coming up. They're going to beat up on them. They might not even beat up on them. They might squeak a couple through. That BYU game's one I've had circled for a long time. That worries me more and more each day. And honestly, at freaking Utah worries me. At Colorado worries me. Even though those teams are terrible, they are so bad. They are actually bad. And I don't think Kansas can win on the road. It's the weirdest thing. Like, dude, Kansas used to win all these road games, man. I used to remember,
Putting on the blue uniform used to be a statement. Like,
dude, right? Like, I remember looking back and I'm like, man, okay, Big 12 race. Every year when the streak was happening, all right, we're tied with so and so with 5 games left. And then you lose a bad one. It's like, all right, you lost maybe an at Texas A&M. Texas A&M wasn't that good. But then you buy it back going on the road at Texas and getting a win there. Okay, so that's how you make up for that kind of tough loss. Where are the wins Kansas isn't supposed to have in their schedule? There's none.
none.
There's no like wow. There's no at Baylor ranked number one in the country at the time, and Doak and Dot go in there and beat them. There's none of those wins have happened for Kansas in the Big 12. So I'm really just worried about road games in general, but I'm just worried about the state of the program, man. Like it's not going to turn around this year, and we'll talk later about our absolute savior, our king, our Pookie, Mr. DP, who's going to come and save the Jayhawks legacy. But I don't see it happening this year, man. Like the best case scenario is they rip off 5 in a row here, and then they've convinced themselves mentally that they're better than they are. And that's the only possible way I can see this going well.
Yeah, we'll kind of get into that schedule coming up here in a second. Just a little recap here. Again, Kansas falling 81-73 to Kansas State. Hunter Dickinson, 21-9 in this game, 4 assists. Not a terrible stat line, but was pretty
Empty.
lost defensively the whole game. Zeke Mayo, 15, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Honestly,
Five
not bad.
turnovers.
Yep, but a lot of turnovers. KJ Adams was great to start the game, but kind of just disappeared in the second half, finished with 13-5. Flory, who I think has kind of struggled a lot recently, had 6-4 in this game. Rylan Griffin missed 5 3-pointers, only had 3 points. That was kind of big in this one. Then DeJuan, 4 points, 6 assists, and shout out to Doug McDaniel kind of going off in this game from three. And then Coleman Hawkins with 12, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds. He was kind of dishing it there.
He was.
And Kansas falls to Kansas State. The bright side, as we mentioned, Kansas' upcoming schedule is very, very favorable. It's probably the most favorable run that they'll have in the Big 12 in like the next 4 or 5 years, to be completely honest. Kansas gets Colorado tomorrow at home, go to Utah on Saturday, February 15th. And then you got BYU on the road as well on Tuesday, the 18th. And then Oklahoma State comes into town Saturday, February 22nd. And then Monday, February 24th, you go at Colorado. Colorado hasn't won a Big 12 game.
We'll
Utah
see.
and Oklahoma State are not good. Like, let's just face it, they're not good.
100%.
Bez, you've said previously BYU on the road scares you. I think Kansas ends up winning that game. If you can close out the month of February with 5 straight wins, that would put KU at 21-7, 12-5 in conference play. And I think that could really give them a lot of confidence heading into March.
Mm-hmm.
If Kansas loses 2 of these games, I'm throwing in the towel. Like I'm just calling the season right there. If Kansas goes 3-2 in this stretch, I think it's over. I really do.
Yeah, yeah, I can't disagree with you on that. I mean, each loss from here on out is going to feel like two because of kind of the backs against the wall that Kansas is dealing with right now. Self keeps saying he thinks there's another gear. That I think that's just media coach speak. Honestly, I think he's done too. I think he's thrown it in. I don't think he sees a way where they rip off 6 in a row. I mean, it's just that's the goal. And he said something earlier about like a lot of teams would kill to be 16-7. And they're like, Well, a lot of teams aren't Kansas. Freaking Kansas. Like I know you know that, Bill. He's just saying stuff, try to keep it positive. This is so embarrassing and just his tenure at Kansas. You look back at some of these records, man. 3 losses, 5 losses, 4 losses, 31-6.
Before the
Like
season started, I like was legitimately convincing myself that Kansas might go undefeated, like and now here.
now here we are. But I mean, like to your point, you should be allowed to think those things as a Kansas fan and as a Kansas former Kansas student. You should be allowed to think like that because there should never be a world where you have 7 losses and we're barely in February. It really shouldn't happen. And it's like honestly a slap in the face to people like me, my age, who have been cheering since we were 3 years old and have never seen it this dark. 2 years in a row this dark. It's never been. Call me spoiled, please. Rob and Jeff call me spoiled every time they come on here. Bring it, guys. I am spoiled. But you know why I'm spoiled? Because we won 14 straight freaking regular season championships in a row, which has never been done in the history of the sport. That is why I'm spoiled, and it's sad that that is just gone, and it seems like it won't come back for a long time right now.
Yep. If Kansas gets that 5, I don't know. I think I'm kind of with you. I'm not exactly sold yet if they go 5-0 in this stretch, but we'll find out in the next stretch of games to end the season because they got number 12 Texas Tech, who I think is a dark horse Final Four team. Then you got at Houston, who's number 6 in the country, and then Arizona coming in on senior night. I don't remember the exact streak there, but I'm pretty sure Kansas has won like 30 plus games in a row on senior night. That one's not going to be easy, but hopefully Kansas can go into that stretch with some confidence, with some sort of sense that it is turned around. Because right now, you're right, it does seem very dark. And this is the self quote that I wanted to end with before we talk Darryn Peterson. Self said, "What we need to do is get better over the next month and then hopefully play our best when the postseason comes around." I don't know. I think there's still a chance, but right now I'm picturing a good season looking like Kansas getting out of the first weekend. Like if
Yeah.
Kansas is in the Sweet 16 and they play somebody good, like I'm okay with that, with how the season is played out. But again, at the beginning of the season, it was Final Four or bust. It was Final Four or bust for this team at the beginning of the season.
It always is, man. It's always Final Four or bust. And I mean, it wouldn't be a success to get out of the first weekend, but I do agree with you. If like, okay, it wasn't a complete disaster if you make it out of the first weekend. Now, if you finish like eighth in the Big 12, I think that's disaster unless you make the Final Four. That's just a sign to the rest of the conference of like it's like the Kansas that you've been scared of. Like all these Iowa State people always talk about like the Allen Fieldhouse and like oh we'll never win there blah blah blah. Like I don't think that is a thing anymore. I and the students that we have now weren't even alive for the Mario shot. I just feel like the magic just isn't there as much as it used to be. That place used to be on fire, and it was pretty good for the Iowa State game. I know it was. But just because it was loud doesn't mean that the passion was there. It was just loud to be loud. No one feels for these guys on our team except for KJ and Dewan. Like, truthfully, no one feels like when Zeke Mayo goes off, I don't feel like, man, I love Zeke Mayo. Like you and I did with Devontae Graham. How much we loved Devontae. That's just not
Devontae made me fall in love with Kansas. I will say
right. No, nobody's falling in love with Kansas because of Zeke Mayo. Nobody is. It's just what's happening.
it's a
And
different
every
era.
year there's supposed to be a guy like that. Ochai, right? Even Jalen Wilson tried his butt off to the very, very end without his coach even being there, almost still made it to the second weekend. Like it's not happening anymore. And that Houston game, like Kansas wins 5 in a row. I can see them beating Tech, honestly, at home, vibes high. I can see that. And then I can also see going down to Houston, getting drilled by 25, and then we're right back here where we are. That's what I'm nervous about. We get all excited through this stretch of terrible teams, and then we get pounded again, and we're just right back here. So I'm not going to let myself get up there just to be right back where we are now. It'll crush me,
I think
honestly.
I've said it before, Bez, but it really does feel like from a game to game basis, it's like Kansas is back. Kansas
Yeah.
is cooked. Like I think I said it a couple episodes ago. Like it really does feel like that from game to game. Like you think that Kansas has finally figured it out, and then it all just comes crashing down. And that is this season so far. I hope we didn't go too somber. I hope we didn't seem too panicky there because there's still a lot of basketball left. But yeah, it's not looking great for the Jayhawks. When we come back, we will talk about somebody who is looking great right now. Kansas commit Darryn Peterson. We're going to discuss his crazy game coming right up next.
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that.
All right, y'all. We are now here to talk about Darryn Peterson, who brings a smile to my face after, discussing all of that mumbo jumbo in the first part of this show. Darryn Peterson, Bez, drops 58 points against Utah Prep, 88-86 win for Prolific Prep over Utah Prep and AJ Dybansta. And Darryn Peterson hits the game-winning shot. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but you said it earlier. He just might be the savior of Kansas basketball. He just might be.
Dude, it's like I'm convincing myself. I'm like, I get NBA prospect wise, AJ is the guy. He just is. But dude, having a combo guard who is an automatic bucket, who is pure energy and passion, and he has no flaws in his offensive game. They're not there. He can dribble it, he can shoot it, he can dunk it on you, he can finish in multiple ways at the rim with both hands. He has a step back. There's really not a lot that he's missing on that end of the floor. It is getting me to like, I think this could be the best freshman Kansas has ever had.
I
Period, point blank. Which is a lot of guys come through the University of Kansas who are pretty good. A lot of guys. But what this kid is doing, like he had a 58-point game. It's not a 58-point high school game. These are two prep schools going head to head after they've already played. Haven't they already played this year? I
Yep,
think
they
they
already
have.
played, and Darryn, I think, had like 31,
Yeah, yeah. He had a
32,
cool,
10,
cool
and
game. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then this isn't your average 58-point high school game from your local city public high schools. This is
He's
two
playing against all Division One
powerhouses.
players. Like
All that's right.
everybody on Utah Prep, like they have Dybansta, the number one player. They have a Xavion Staten, who's a 7-footer going to BYU. He's top 30 in the country. They have a guy, Anthony Falesi, who's like a top 75 junior. He's one of the best defenders in the 2026 class. Like this was no joke, guys. 58
Right.
points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals against a bunch of dudes who he's going to be playing against next year.
Yeah. And it looked effortless, man. The way he gets baskets is special. Like, like in terms of rankings, he's up there with Wiggins. Just pure 247, whatever you look at, rankings wise, he's up there with Wiggins. But Wiggins was not this polished, not even close to this polished when he came to Lawrence. DP is going to be a finished product coming into boot camp this year, or this after this year, I guess. Like I know he's a kid, and I know you completely agree with everything I'm saying because you've gotten to watch him multiple times lately. But dude, like he is ready to go right now. He'd be the best player on our team right now, and it wouldn't be close right now. It would, Sam, who is even remotely at his level? It's
I
not the one
I
or kids
I
that are
think
other.
I think Bez, he is the best high school player in the country.
I
I'll say
do too.
I think he is
I do
better.
too.
I think he's better than AJ Dybansta.
So
The
do I.
thing that makes AJ Dybansta number one is the fact that he's 6'9",
Right.
and
Guard.
everybody thinks that projecting years
Right.
in the
Right.
future that he's going to be a superstar. Right now, Right now, there is no better high school player in America than Darryn Peterson. In 2 games over this weekend, he averaged 44.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 7.5 assists per game. I'll ask you this, Bez. Has Kansas ever had a guy like this?
This is why I'm so excited. No,
I don't think Kansas has. Like,
no.
this guy is a bona fide top 3 pick probably in the NBA draft. And if he just goes absolutely insane at Kansas, he could be number 1.
Dude, I think he'd get picked ahead of Dylan Harper this year. I'm dead serious. I think he'd go number 2 behind Flag in this year's draft. Like, Bill is like a famous I don't love one and done type of dude, right? So you typically these guys that Kansas like Wiggins wasn't a project, but his overall skill set needed growing while he was in Lawrence. Same thing with Embiid, who was a massive project, A plus on the project though. Holy cow. Josh Jackson was kind of the same way. Couldn't really shoot, couldn't really dribble quite yet. Freakish athlete, though. Grady Dick can shoot, but what else is he good at? He's a really awkward athlete, kind of moves funny. That turned out pretty well. Darryn Peterson, dude, like, this is. KU never has, like, these, other than, like, the Frank Devontae years, like, these dudes. Like, I got to go back to, like, Brandon Rush, who was just a pure finished product in terms of scoring the basketball and how easy he made it look for that '08 team and the team the year before. Like, dude, I'm going back in the vault to like Bill Self is like young and like looks fresh and ready to go. He's screaming his you know what off. Like, this is something my excitement level is like we've never seen this before. Next year will be the first time we see something like this as Kansas fans.
Yeah, Darryn Peterson's a dude. There's no really other way to say it. Like, Self has even mentioned in multiple press conferences this year, like he's going to be the guy next year.
Like,
And
think
no
Ben
doubt.
McLemore, but 10 times better, and how good Ben was. Like, Ben was awesome, and that's my comp. Same height, same position, but DP is gonna surpass what Ben did, and I loved Ben. But this is how excited everybody needs to be about this kid.
Yeah. He's going to be an all-timer for Kansas that we'll be able to watch in the league for quite some time. And Kansas hasn't really had a guy like that lately besides, I think, Christian Brown is really the only person you could point to where is a Kansas dude who's
Project.
just absolutely hooping in the NBA right now. I wanted to end with this quote from Prolific Preps head coach Ryan Bernardi. He said, quote, "That will go down as one of the best high school games and one of the best high school performances of all time."
I mean,
True.
like,
True.
think of the stakes, who you're playing, what you did. 88-86 in a game winner with a 60 piece against number 1. Man, that's special.
It is. Well, all right, y'all. That is what we will end on today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will be back probably after this Colorado game. We'll see how the Jayhawks play at home. In front of my guy, Tad Boyle, former Kansas Jayhawk.
That's
Excited to see his reception in Allen Fieldhouse.